and welcome to the Emerging Tech Radio, the podcast that explores everything about energy, electric vehicles, and other emerging technologies in the clean tech space. I am Girish Shivakumar. On this episode, we feature Cleanmax Solar, India's leading solar rooftop project developer. The episode is part of the series where we feature startups and leading clean tech companies. Cleanmax Solar was one of the early movers in the space of investor-owned solar rooftop projects in India. Today, it claims the largest market share in investor-owned solar rooftop projects. India has a national target of installing 40 gigawatt of solar rooftop projects by 2022. On this show, I have a chat with Manu Karan, VP of Business Development for New Business Initiatives from Cleanmax Solar. Hello Manu, welcome to the show.
Hi Girish, how are you doing?
Doing good.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. So, solar rooftop project development has scaled up in the last few years, and you have been in the sector for quite some time. What do you think took corporates a long time before adopting them in a big way, as seen in the last few years? And what would you probably say was Cleanmax's key value proposition during this time?
So, the CNI segment has always been an early adopter of solar. I think the initial adoption was a little bit slow, primarily because it required a certain economics, and the economics was only available if there was a subsidization. MNRE had a subsidy program for 100 kilowatt system sizes. Hence, we were all dependent on only 100 kilowatt systems for the market entry, and corporates were also adopting it at the rate of only 100 kilowatts. Hence, so what happened was, there was only limited adoption of this technology. But once the solar module prices fell, it became a lot more viable. Companies started seeing that even without subsidy, it was cheaper than grid. And we were no longer contained by the 100 kilowatt size. Hence, we could do megawatt roofs. And it became a lot more popular once you started seeing large installations. Mass adoption followed, and, here we are where we are. And Cleanmax has been in the thick of the action right from 2011, when all this adoption of rooftop solar took place. What we do is we offer the entire solar energy proposition in an OpEx model. What this does for clients is that, they're not familiar with this technology, hence they don't have to risk, they don't need to know what quality of items we use, how we run it and things like that. We only get paid if we generate, and beyond a certain number of units we generate. Hence, they are also comfortable saying that, okay, I don't have to pay for this installation. I only pay per unit, which is how they are used to paying for electricity anyway. And if the technology fails, hey, it's not on me. It's Cleanmax's risk. So we de-risk the technology. We make it easier for them to adopt right from their roof, and we always make economic sense. They're always 15 to 20% cheaper than grid. That's how I think Cleanmax has become such a dominant player in this market segment.
Grid parity was a holy grail for the solar sector. So did large corporates move away from sustainability obligations only when solar rooftop tariffs breached the grid parity numbers?
100% true what you're saying. There is no reason for anybody to install this other than economics. Yes, there were initially a couple of companies who said, we'd like to go green. But even then, the economics have been the key factor. Initially, with subsidy, we were able to hit that grid parity. Now, without subsidy, we're able to do comfortably grid parity and lower than grid parity solutions. That's why this works.
Generally, CNI clients typically don't prefer to enter into a long-term contract or an obligation. Have you seen this change in the recent times? Are developers like Cleanmax comfortable with short-term contracts?
See, as the solar prices fall, it becomes a lot more viable to give options. Initially, only with a 25-year contract, we were able to offer grid parity solutions. That is, solutions that are cheaper than their grid prices. Now, as the solar prices have fallen even more, we are able to give a slightly higher pricing, but for a shorter term contract. So if you look at 2011, 2012, all the contracts were about 25 years long. Today, we are able to offer for that pricing a much shorter tenure. We give options to customers. So we say, let's say at 5 rupees and 2% escalation, you can take a 25-year contract, or at 550 and 2% escalation, you can take a 15-year contract. So the shorter contracts are slightly higher priced. Previously, in 2011, 2012, that higher price would be higher than the grid and hence would not work. Hence, only the long-term contracts are feasible. Today, that's not the case. We give them options. Some people prefer to pay a higher price for a slightly shorter contract. Some people still want the cheapest price, which is available, and the longer contracts. And they're okay to sign up for such long contracts. So both are possible today, thankfully, because of the solar module price falling.
So is it a win-win situation on the third-party route where the entire liability is on the developer?
Yes, definitely. So we are able to give that kind of value proposition where we are cheaper, and if we don't generate, they don't need to pay. And we are able to give flexibility in terms of length of contracts, which is why I think it's becoming a lot easier for customers to adopt this.
Similarly, operation and maintenance is another pain point for C&I clients, considering the entire asset is on their rooftop. How have we managed to address these issues?
So even in the O&M portion of things, it's a win-win for both of us, the client and us. If you look at operations and maintenance, there are two aspects to it. One is, of course, the security of the system itself. And second is the actual running of the system. Let's talk about the security portion first, right? All the rooftop systems are on their facilities. Their facilities are typically fenced or compound walled facilities with security, with a gate. So there's no additional cost on them for it. Hence, it makes sense for them to just say, we'll provide the security. Whereas for the operations and maintenance, they don't want to be running after any vendor to come. Let's say they get into an annual maintenance contract and there are 12 cleanings or 12 maintenance visits that are mandated or contracted. Usually it ends up that they start following and, vendors start backing off or delaying and things like that. In this case, there is no cost for maintenance. It's in the interest of Cleanmax to maintain it as frequently or as infrequently as required at the cheapest possible prices to make sure that the system generates. So we don't charge anything for O&M to the customers. We maintain it because only then it will generate and then we get paid per unit. So in fact, in this model, both our incentives are aligned. I want to maintain the system well, I as in Cleanmax, and hence I get maximum generation and I get paid maximum. The customer wants the system to be maintained well because there will be maximum generation and hence maximum saving for him. Our incentives are absolutely aligned, and that's why this OPEX model works so beautifully. I don't think any customers have ever had an issue on operations and maintenance with OPEX model providers like us.
That's a valid point you make. On the other side, for a developer like you with operations across India, regulatory affairs must be a key challenge. Have the state level regulators turned project developer friendly over the years?
Initially, it was a little bit slow because of technology unfamiliarity. Today, I don't think that problem exists. In 2011, 2012, we had to spend a lot of time educating the regulatory authorities on what the technology is, what the risks, benefits, and limitations are. Today, they're all comfortable, they're all familiar. Most of the industrial estates, that's not an issue at all. However, there are other things like, it is a fact that we take away some of their revenue. So there's always going to be a conflict as to, they want to approve it very easily. They try to throw as many roadblocks as possible. Net metering is one such contentious issue, which enables the customer, C&I customer, and the developer to consume less from the grid, which means it's automatically a less revenue for the grid, for the DISCOM. So they try to delay as much as possible. For example, in states like Karnataka and Maharashtra, the net metering approvals itself may be anywhere between 3 and 6 months. Whereas in Tamil Nadu, for example, it exists, but you don't really see it happening at all. So there are different states reacting differently to the issue of revenue loss. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes from here.
And talking of how market moves from here, how do you see the market for solar rooftop projects shaping up in the coming few years?
It's definitely going to improve. If you look at it, initially all of our solar competitors and us, what we did is we looked at the cream of customers. Why? Because we had to offer only 25-year contracts and that means the company itself has to last 25 years for us to make our return. Hence, very, very few companies even qualified for investment for us. Today, as we are able to get to 10-year contracts, the risk profile that we can look at is a lot more. For example, we can be you can be sure that this company will last for 12 years, 15 years. They may not last for 25, or, we don't know how to take a view on the 25-year longevity of this customer, but for the next 10 years, I can see that they'll be okay. As the solar prices fall even more, we can even think about 6 or 7 year contracts, which allows us to go to a different risk profile of customers. And hence the penetration can be much, much larger. So the market is definitely going to take off, and even more at a rapid pace.
On a final note, what do you see as Cleanmax is offering in advanced energy technologies like energy storage for commercial and industrial clients going forward?
See, we see value for storage in 3 or 4 different aspects today for corporate clients. One is the demand charge reduction, where there are spiky loads on their campus, which when they turn on, the demand goes up and they get billed for it, even if it's only for a few seconds. And that kind of spike absorption can be done by the storage, so demand charge reduction. Second is replacing their existing UPSs, which they use for their continuous operation. So that can also be performed by advanced solutions like lithium ion and things like that. Then there is also the capacitor banks that many industries carry. We can eliminate that also for providing kVAR facilities that the grid requires, that the DISCOM imposes on C&I customers. And finally, of course, diesel abatement for the hours of power outage where UPSs cannot function and they need to run diesel gensets. That portion also can be done by advanced storage solutions like lithium ion. We believe that these are the 4 primary reasons why C&I consumers will adopt this. We also believe that at some point of time, the DISCOM is going to start giving incentives to encourage C&I customers to install advanced solutions. For 2 reasons. One is, of course, transmission and distribution upgradation deferral. So in really crowded places, it's very hard for the DISCOM to upgrade and, go from 11 kV lines to 33 kV lines, 33 kV towers and things like that, or 33 to 110 kV. So to defer that, they may use incentives to encourage installation of storage devices. And the second, of course, is if you really look at it, every customer has got some sort of storage today, either in the form of diesel or UPSs. At some point of time, the DISCOMs want to incentivize advanced solutions so that they can use it for spinning reserves. At some point of time, half the storage capacity installed at a customer may be used by the DISCOM itself for, stepping up or stepping down generation. So that's, I think, will become a function in the near future. So these are the 2 primary reasons why we think that storage solutions will take off in the C&I segment. What Cleanmax wants to do in this segment is again offer an OPEX model where C&I customers are not taking the risk of technology, not taking the risk of which technology will survive, who the vendor should be, who the right vendor is for the same technology that they've picked. And of course, do they have the ability to run it and operate it and maintain it? So all this we will de-risk and give an OPEX solution even to our storage solutions for the C&I customers. That's our play in this segment, and we believe that the next couple of years will be very interesting as C&I customers start adopting this.
Thanks, Manu. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Girish. It was a pleasure being on your podcast.
So yes, although there is uncertainty in the large-scale grid-connected solar projects, the Indian solar rooftop market is definitely on the rise. As Manu mentioned earlier, the decline in solar project cost have enabled solar rooftop project developers like Cleanmax to move away from the top-tier AAA rated corporates to commercial and industrial clients in the tier 2 cities with short-term contracts and a low risk profile, which is turning out to be a win-win value proposition for both the developer and the client. And as new technologies like energy storage emerge, energy as a service could be the way forward.